Hey there, welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, a groundbreaking book that explores how we think, decide, and act. This book has shaped our understanding of human behavior and the way we interact with the world around us. So, get comfortable and let's take a journey into the fascinating world of our minds. To begin, Kahneman introduces us to two systems of thinking that shape every decision we make. He calls them System 1 and System 2. System 1 is fast, automatic, and unconscious. It's like the autopilot of our brains, making decisions quickly without much effort. Think about how you instantly recognize a friend's face or how you know to stop when a traffic light turns red. This system operates effortlessly, but it's also prone to biases and errors. On the other hand, System 2 is slower, more deliberate, and logical. It's the thinking that goes into solving complex problems, like doing math or planning your day. System 2 requires more mental energy and attention. This is where we use reasoning and logic, but it also means we're more prone to mental fatigue when relying on it for too long. Kahneman makes it clear, while we like to think of ourselves as rational thinkers, we often rely on System 1 for most decisions, which can lead us astray. Isn't it fascinating how our brains are hardwired to save energy by using shortcuts? But here's the catch. These shortcuts can cause us to jump to conclusions, overlook important details, or make snap judgments that aren't always accurate. Now, let's talk about cognitive biases. These are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that help us make decisions more efficiently, but they often lead us to incorrect conclusions. Kahneman highlights several of these biases, and wow, do they shape the way we view the world. For example, the anchoring effect is when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we encounter. Imagine seeing a pair of shoes for $500. Then you see another pair for $200 and you think, wow, what a deal. Even though $200 is still a lot of money, the initial price, the anchor, has influenced your judgment. Isn't that sneaky? Another fascinating bias is the availability heuristic, which is when we judge the likelihood of an event based on how easily examples come to mind. If you've recently heard about a plane crash on the news, you might overestimate the risks of flying, even though flying is statistically safer than driving. That's your brain working overtime to make judgments based on vivid or recent memories. And then there's the confirmation bias. We tend to look for information that confirms what we already believe, ignoring anything that contradicts our views. It's like we're on a mission to prove ourselves right, even when we might be wrong. These biases, as Kahneman points out, shape our decisions every single day. We're all susceptible to them, no matter how much we think we're in control of our thinking. Fascinating, right? Now, let's dive into prospect theory, one of Kahneman's most famous contributions to psychology. It challenges traditional economic theory, which assumes that people always make decisions based on rational thinking. In contrast, prospect theory suggests that people value gains and losses differently, and losses weigh much heavier than gains. Imagine you're given $100 and then asked if you'd prefer a guaranteed $50 or a 50% chance of winning $100. Most people choose the guaranteed $50, even though the expected value of the gamble is the same. But here's the kicker. Kahneman explains that we're more motivated by fear of loss than the potential for gain. This is called loss aversion, and it's why we're more likely to take risks to avoid losing something we already have, rather than taking risks to gain something new. Have you ever made a bad investment because you didn't want to accept a loss, even though it was the rational thing to do? Or held on to a bad habit, simply because letting go would feel like losing something? Yeah, loss aversion is that powerful. Now, let's talk about something we all tend to fall victim to, overconfidence bias. Kahneman shows us that we tend to overestimate our abilities, knowledge, and predictions. Ever been sure you knew the best route to take during traffic or thought you could ace a test without studying? That's overconfidence in action. What's really interesting is that experts aren't immune to this bias either. Even professionals in complex fields like finance or medicine tend to overestimate their ability to predict outcomes. Kahneman notes that people with less knowledge are often the most confident, which can be a dangerous combination. But here's the lesson. Overconfidence doesn't just lead to poor decisions. It also prevents us from considering alternative viewpoints or being open to new information. Speaking of overconfidence, let's talk about the planning fallacy. This is the tendency we have to underestimate the time, cost, and risks of future actions while overestimating the benefits. It's why so many of us fail to meet deadlines or go over budget on projects. Whether you're planning a vacation, launching a business, or even doing home repairs, we tend to assume everything will go smoothly even when past experiences tell us otherwise. It's easy to fall into this trap, right? We think, oh, this will only take a couple of hours, but it ends up taking days. Kahneman suggests that we should always be aware of this bias and take into account real-world data and past experiences before making optimistic predictions. It's not about being pessimistic, but about being realistic and reducing unnecessary surprises. Let's now explore how the way information is presented, framing, can dramatically affect our decisions. Kahneman presents several experiments showing how our choices change based on how options are framed. For example, would you prefer a surgery with a 90% survival rate or a surgery with a 10% mortality rate? While the two are mathematically identical, people are far more likely to choose the first option because the positive framing, survival rate, feels better than the negative one, mortality rate. This shows how the emotional weight of words can shape our perception, even when the actual data is the same. Framing affects all kinds of decisions, from consumer choices to political opinions. It's another subtle way our minds can be swayed, even when we think we're making rational decisions. Here's another fun one: the endowment effect. This is the idea that we value things more highly simply because we own them. Think about how hard it is to get rid of old clothes, even if we never wear them. Once something becomes ours, we tend to overestimate its value. The endowment effect can lead to irrational behavior. For example, if you're trying to sell a car, you might think it's worth more than it actually is, simply because it's yours. Kahneman explains that our attachment to our possessions often clouds our judgment and makes us unwilling to part with them, even when it's the rational thing to do. So, why should we care about all of these biases and mental shortcuts? Well, Kahneman's work has huge implications for our everyday decisions. From the way we shop to how we make life-changing choices, understanding how we think can help us make better decisions. Kahneman suggests that we should become more aware of the biases influencing our thinking and take steps to counteract them. For example, slow down your decision-making process when possible and try to be aware of your automatic reactions. Ask yourself, am I being influenced by a bias? Am I thinking too quickly? This self-awareness doesn't guarantee perfect decisions, but it does help us approach decisions with more clarity and understanding. In the end, thinking fast and slow challenges us to think about how we think. It's not just about understanding the mind, it's about using that understanding to improve the way we live, work, and make choices. Kahneman's insights can help us avoid pitfalls in decision-making, reduce biases, and ultimately lead to a more rational, thoughtful approach to life. Thanks for sticking with us through this deep dive into thinking fast and slow. If you're as fascinated as I am by the workings of the human mind, be sure to grab a copy of the book and explore even further. If you found this summary helpful, give us a thumbs up, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, keep thinking and keep learning.